We're thankful to the Lord that He's given us another opportunity to come back here to Friendship Missionary Baptist Church, and we thank the church for her prayers and her allowing us to come this way. Appreciate the prayers of each and every one that would utter a prayer for me, for any preacher anywhere, and we certainly need to be praying for our preachers. We come to you heavy-hearted and burdened. For those in our community, there's a lot of death. A lot of people have passed with sickness of different kinds here in this community of Macon County and surrounding. And we certainly are very sorrowful for those passings of those that have left this world. We're sorry for the families, those that have been saved. We're certainly not sorry for them because we know where they've went. But we feel for their families and we pray for them. And certainly the families that give up loved ones, even in days past and gone, that grief don't go away in a day or two. It don't end at a funeral. And we certainly need to remember them in our prayers. And there is a senseless violence and things that happens all the time. And we see it on the news, and maybe we get numb to it. But when it happens to someone that you know, it's different. Someone that you watched grow up and seen when they were young and become a young adult. And it's very difficult to grasp why these things happen and how they get to this point. But we would certainly like to ask you to pray for the family of Sister Katie Taylor. Pray for her mother and father, for her family, for her children that have been left behind. I'm thankful that she was saved. And I pray that the Lord will provide that way, and her family will make sure her children go to the Lord's house, and that they will hear about the way of salvation, and they too will find the Lord and be saved and be joined to their mother again. But certainly pray for that family. Our heart breaks for them and for that community. We've got a lesson on our heart, and I know that I have read this before. There's no doubt that I have. I recall it. But it is what the Lord has laid upon my heart again, and I ask y'all to be prayerful that it falls where it needs to fall. I find in the Scriptures that the Lord would send one man to go and to preach to one, and I don't know. I don't know who I'm preaching to. I don't see faces in a crowd. And that doesn't bother me. But I pray that wherever God wants this to go, that it'll find its lodging place there. And I'd ask you those to pray for it, because I feel it in my heart that there's someone with this that the Lord has in mind. And it ain't for me to know, and it's for the Lord and them to know. And I pray that God will help them. In Luke, in the 15th chapter, we're going to start at verse 10 for our reading lesson. Not verse 10, but verse 11 of Luke 15, verse 11. And he said, a certain man had 2 sons, and the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the portion of goods that falleth to me, and divideth, and he divided unto him his living. Not many days after, the younger son gathered all together and took his journey to a far country, and there wasted his substance with riotous living. And when he had spent all, there arose a mighty famine in that land, and he began to be in want. And he went and joined himself to a citizen of that country, and he sent unto him into the fields to feed swine. And he would fain have filled his belly with the husk that the swine did eat, and no man gave unto him. And when he came to himself, he said, How many hired servants of my father's have bread enough and to spare, and I perish with hunger? I will arise and go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I've sinned against heaven and before thee, I'm no more worthy to be called thy son, but make thee as one of thy hired servants. And he arose and came to his father. But when he was a great way off, his father saw him and had compassion and ran and fell on his neck and kissed him. And the son said unto him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in thy sight, and am no more worthy to be called thy son. But the father said to his servants, Bring forth the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet, and bring it thither the fatted calf, and kill it, and let us eat and be merry. For this my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. And they began to be merry. Now, with my mistakes in reading, that is verses 11 through 24 of this 15th chapter of Luke for a reading lesson. And many people have heard of the story of the prodigal son. And we look here and find that this man that had these two sons, and this man, this father, was very rich. His sons didn't own anything. He owned everything that was under his command and under his power. So what they wore, where they lived, what was given to them, it was all his. And he just allowed them to partake of it and to be under his shelter. But this one son, he decided he didn't want to be under the protection of his father, that he didn't want to live there. He wanted to go and live his own life. He wanted to go and see things for himself. But yet he didn't own anything. He didn't own anything. He didn't have the money. He didn't have the means to go out and live on his own. And he asked his father, he said, Divide to me the portion of goods that falls me. Give me my inheritance now. As though you were dead and gone, give me what I would get. If that was the case, give me that money and I'll be on my way. And he done that. I'm sure the father was very sorrowful at his son's request. He could see the hurt that this could be to him. And his father, being wiser, knew that this wouldn't be good, but he allowed him to have what he wanted. I'm going to tell you what, we better be careful what we want. We better be careful what we ask for. We might just get it. We might just get exactly what it is that we want. So you better be careful what you ask for, what you seek after, what you desire, because the Lord might just let you have all that. If you desire to have a life away from the church, away from your family, away from those that love you, the Lord can let you have that. If you want a life that where you do wrong and you're not reproved of it, you feel no shame in it, the Lord can let you have that life. But let me tell you what, there's a price to pay for living that kind of life. This man here, he got his living, he gathered everything together, and he went into a far country. Got as far away from his raising as he could. Far away from his father as he could. Now, he made the conscious choice to do what he was doing. He didn't gradually enter into this. He jumped headlong off into it. He took off and he got away from the one that loved him so much. He just took off and he left it, went to a far country. I'm sure he didn't want to be reminded of who his father was. He didn't want to have that over him. People to say, well, you only have this or that because of your father. He wanted to go out on his own. Didn't say that he wanted to make a living for himself. Didn't say that he wanted to start a life for himself in the sense of, that, hey, I'm going to take this money and I'm going to build up a farm of my own, buy my own cattle and all that. No, that ain't what he done. Says he took a far country and he wasted his substance with riotous living, with ungodly living. So he didn't use what he had been given wisely. He wanted to live it up. He wanted to go and enjoy what that money would afford him. And I'm going to tell you, the love of money is the root of all evil. People love money because of what it can provide them. It is a necessity to have it in this life, to provide yourself a home and clothes and food and such things as that. But many people desire it so that they can fulfill the desires of their sinful flesh, to go out and live ungodly. The more that they have, the more they can feed that desire that they have to live ungodly, and to live in such a way that can be wasteful. I'm going to tell you what real quick, if you want to be poor, just start drinking and doing drugs and those kind of things, and you'll be poor quick. You can have all the money you want, and it'll go away quickly if you live in a riotous manner. I'm going to tell you what, be careful with what. Now, I'm going to tell you, all this that he had was just give to him. He didn't own any of it. He didn't earn it. It was give to him. And he wasted his substance with riotous living. I believe there's a lot of saved people today that they are wasting what the good Lord has given them. They are wasting away their life out here in the world, living in a manner and way away from God, away from the church, and it's damning to them. It's hurting to them. And the way we are is until trouble hits us, we don't even know we're in trouble. Until we get to our lowest point, we think we're living it up and everything's fine because we don't see our life hanging in the balance. We think everything's all right. But I want you to know, the further you stay away from God, the further you stay and the longer you stay away from God and His church, the more danger that you're in. It says here, and when he'd spent all that he had, I'm going to tell you what. You may think, I'll never run out. This is going to go on and on and on. Sooner or later, you'll get to the end of your rope. It'll all cut off. And there you'll be. You have got rid of everything. You know, you can cut yourself off from the Lord's church. You can cut yourself off from everybody that reminds you of the Lord's church, so you won't be reminded of it. You can get as far away as you can to try not to know it, but then when you're out of everything, you have nothing when you're in need, because you're going to be in need sooner or later. Spent all you had, all gone. Says, and there arose a mighty famine in that land, and he began to be in want. A famine, they didn't have food enough to eat. So he was living high, and then all of a sudden it was gone. I'm going to tell you what, there's people in this world today, they're living high today. But I'm going to tell you what, you think, well, I'm secure in this and I'm secure in that. The bank's got a certain amount of money that they secure. Let me tell you what, God can clear out the bank accounts in a day. It don't take Him a day. He can bring us down to poverty in a matter of moments, and He can bring that to our country. He can do that to a home, and He can do that to an individual, and He certainly can and will to those that are far away from Him. That mighty family come into the land. He began to be in want. He didn't have what he needed. I can tell you right now, you might think, I've got a roof over my head, I've got clothes on my back, I got a job, I got extra money in the bank, I've got everything seems to be going my way. If you ain't where the Lord wants you to be, and let me just tell you where the Lord wants you to be if you're saved by the grace of God. He first wants you to be a member of His church, and He wants you to be in there every time the doors are open. He wants you to dedicate your life to serving Him. And if you refuse to do that, let me tell you, you might not realize it, but you're in a spiritual famine. And that's a dangerous thing. I believe the Lord's church today, overall, we're in a spiritual famine. And people are almost as though, well, our natural needs are supplied. Well, everything must be all right. Well, let me tell you what, this natural man can't, the things that it can take in and have will not satisfy the spiritual man. It will not do it. Worldly things can't satisfy the spiritual hunger that an individual can have. And if you're not where you need to be, you might have got cold and far away and hardened yourself and blamed everybody for everything, but you're the one that's in hurt. You're hurting yourself by staying away from God. It says here, and he got so low. Now, the Lord's telling this about a Jewish man. He got so low that he went and joined himself to a citizen in that country, and he went in the fields to feed swine. Now, the Jews, they looked down. You didn't eat hogs now. You didn't eat any part of it. They looked at that as foul. Was foul to them. He got so low that he joined up some people of that country, had to have some work, and he went so low that he fed swine. You might say, I'll never sink as low as this person will. Or I'll never do what this person do. You don't know what you'll do when you get in a bad shape. Let me just tell you. You may think, I'm too proud to do this or that. You can get in such a bad shape that you will be in a hog lot. Then the same thing, a place you would think was beneath you is where you'll wind up if you don't get back to where you need to be with the Lord. And it says he would have feigned. And I look up that word feign. That ain't a word that we use as a general way. But he would have gladly have filled his belly, eat. So his natural man was filled with the husk of the swine, but nobody gave to him. He was so hungry, naturally hungry, that he saw them hogs eating. And if you've ever been around a hog at all, been around any pigs walking in that mud and all that feces and all that nastiness and them eating and them rooting around in it, they don't care one bit whatsoever. And he saw the nastiness of it, and he thought, I wished I just had that to eat. I'm going to tell you, the Lord can bring you low. He can bring you low. He can bring you to your lowest point where you see just how bad a shape that you're in. And sometimes we need to see what bad a shape we're in. We don't need to think too much of ourselves and get high-minded to think more of ourselves than what we ought to think. Say, how do you know that? Because I've been there. I've been thinking, well, look at what I have and what I have done. I'd like Nebuchadnezzar. Lord let him know that he hadn't done nothing, that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of man. Let me tell you what, you may think your house is your kingdom. You may think your work world is your kingdom. But I want to tell you something. God rules all of it. It's all His. It's all His. So here he is, and he's in this bad of shape. He's hungry. He's away from everybody that cares for him. There's nobody around. He got away from all the people that cared about him. These people didn't care about him. They was just using him to get a job done. They didn't care about him. They wasn't worried about him. All the people that cared about him, he left. He ran away from to people that didn't care. And it was obvious. They wouldn't even give him husk. Nobody would give him even what the hogs would eat. They treated him not right at all. They didn't treat him in any good way. They didn't give him what he was needed to even feed him with. I'm going to tell you what. People are mean is what they are. This world is mean and it's cruel. And I've heard the old saying, it'll chew you up and spit you out, and it'll do it. People will be cruel to you. People will mistreat you. And that's why I see on the news, they don't even have to have a reason to be mean to you now. They don't have to have a reason. They're just going up and hitting people and killing people and shooting in houses and shooting in cars. Why, there's violence at every hand if you think people will make you think. Well, they love you and nobody else will love you. And they'll put people down. I'm going to tell you what, that's a coward is what that is. I ain't got no other way to say it. Somebody to treat somebody like that. They don't really love you. These people didn't love this man. They didn't care about him. He was at his lowest state. All he was a hired hand. And then he came to himself. He snapped out of it. I wish that people would come to themselves. They would wake up. That we would wake up as a whole, the whole community, the Lord's church, that we'd wake up and come to ourselves and see we're starved to death and we need to get back to our Father. We need to get back where we need to be. And he came to himself. He thought about it. The Lord snapped him out of it. It was like he was in a trance. He was so low, and I can imagine just how low he had to have been. And he thought, he said, now I don't know if he said it to somebody or just said it out loud, but he said it. How many hired servants of my father's have bread enough and to spare, and here I perish hunger? Even here I was a son. The hired servants are eating better than I'm eating. Well, you know they do. They've got plenty and to spare, and here I'm hungry. Now he could have in pride said, yeah, but I've done went too far. I've insulted my daddy, and I've asked him for all this money, and I've took off. My daddy and them, I don't know why they used to say it. They'd call me Big Ike. Go on, Big Ike. Just like I was going to do something. I don't know where that come from, but just go on. I wanted to do something as a little kid, and I'd go off, and they'd try to tell me, and I'd get hurt. And they'd say, try to tell you, hardhead. But they would be right there to help me. But I'm sure he thought, I can't. And there'll be people today that will say, I can't go back. I can't go back. Pride will stand in their way. Pride. I'm going to tell you what, pride is a dangerous thing. That's a toxin you need to get out of your body. Because and out of your mind and out of your notion, pride is a dangerous thing. It goeth before the fall. Let me tell you what, I pray that you get a little lower, that I get a little lower, that we all get a little lower, that we'll shed our pride and turn back towards our Father. It says here, I'm no more worthy to be called thy son. Make me as one of thy hired servants. He said, I'll rise and I'll go to my father, and I'll say to him, my father, I've sinned against heaven before thee. I'm no more worthy to be called thy son. Make me as one of thy hired servants. This is my plan. I'm going to go back. Now, you don't think the devil wasn't with him every step of the way? The very thought that he'll go back. Well, you can't go back there. Why, he's going to look down at you. He won't have nothing to do with you. Why? When they hear what you've done and how you've lived and how you've carried on and how you have got out and wasted everything, and why, good gracious, when they hear that you were in a hog lot and you were among the filthy swine, they'll have nothing to do with you. You don't think the devil didn't wear him out? Well, you know he did. You know he did, because I know, because he does that to me. He wears me out. Well, what everybody's going to think, he builds it all up in my mind, telling me how it's going to be to hinder me. And he arose. You're going to have to get up, and you're going to have to make a move. We can all pray for people that they will come and seek the Lord and be saved, but we can't make them come and seek the Lord and be saved. They're going to have to make the move. We can pray that somebody will get back in church, but let me tell you something. We need to pray for them. We need to pray for the sinner, that the Lord will get a hold of them and get them down so low and so troubled that they'll move. But I'm going to tell you, they still have to move. And we need to pray for those that are astray, that have left the Lord's church, that don't come like they should, that are wrapped up in the world. We need to pray for them, that the Lord will get a hold of them, will get them low. But you're still going to have to get up. And you're going to have to make the move. You're going to have to come back. You're going to have to make your way back. And I know what the devil is telling you. He's telling you, I won't want you back. And he'll tell you, well, you're as good as this and you're as good as that and that does this or that or the other thing. Well, let me tell you something. You'll answer for you and they'll answer for them. You need to do what is right between you and God. So he said, he arose and he came to his father. So he started making his way back. Now he took a far journey, so that didn't happen overnight. So he come back. He started making his way back. You know what I've heard people say that got out of church and got away from the Lord? You know what they say that is the hardest? Is that first step back. That first turning. And that don't happen all at once. And we want to see it all at once. We're impatient. We need to pray that God brings them back. Gets them to where they'll turn and then help them to make those steps to get back. But I'm satisfied at that first step back into the Lord's house, back into being a part and coming back to the Lord's church. I'm satisfied, and I can imagine just how hard that it can be. It's hard when you quit doing something to go back. To go back that first time, you get to worrying about everything. What are they going to think? Will they treat me right? That's what people think. That's what the devil says. I ain't going to treat you right. Notice what this father. He came and rose, but when he was a great way off, out in the distance, he was not back to his father's house yet, but he was a far way off. And his father saw him. You know what I believe? I believe his father was looking for him to come home. I believe his father was yearning and desiring for his son to come home. And he kept watching for him. I can only liken it to what I've experienced, and it's not the exact same thing, but I remember when our daughter started driving and the first time she drove off, I was worried in those first few times. And even now, when she drives off, I'll watch her as far as I can see her. But when I knew it was time for her to come home, when she still lived at home, when I knew it was about time that she should be about home, we'd go to looking. We'd go to watching for her, expecting her home. Because even though it was just a little while, she's at work, school, whatever it might be, at a friend's house, whatever it might be, it was good to see her come home. Still is today, I can tell you that. This man stood watching, and I'm satisfied that he stood and watched a lot for his son to come. I'm sure he worried about him, fretted over him. He was out there and there wasn't a thing he could do to help him. Now, I can tell you what, the Lord can help you far away. But when you get far away from the Lord, that's not a good thing. And when he saw him a great way off, it says here he had compassion and he ran and he fell on his neck and he kissed him. All that, I'm sure, worry and fear and all those things that the devil, I'm sure, put in front of him and he puts in front of us. Well, when we turn back to the Lord, it's just like this. That we come and we find that he loves us, that he has compassion, that he takes us up and he's affectionate to us because we've come back home. And he'll bless us. That man that was hungry, he went on telling him, Lord, he said, Father, I've sinned against you. I've done wrong. I have messed up. I have lived wrong. I ain't worthy to be your son no more. Just let me be one of your servants. That's plenty good. He was humble. He come back humble. He didn't come in prideful. He come in humble. His father said, oh, no. He won't be no treating you as a hired servant. He went, he got the best robes and rings, and they was killing fatted calves. They was doing everything to bless him. He had come back home, and he blessed him. I'm going to tell you what, if you want a blessing, if you've got far away from the Lord, come home. Come home. And I don't know if this is for a member of Friendship Church, if it's for a member of another church. I don't know who that it's for, but the thought that is upon my heart is it's time to come home. It's time. You've been gone on the mountain of sin too long. You've been out there away from those that love you too long. You've been turned over to the world and to the lust of it too long. You've been entertained by all that too long, and it is not enough for you. It'll never fill you up. You'll have to keep going back and back, and you'll find what you'll find is it'll never satisfy you the way the Lord can. And if you go so far as you say, I don't want it, he can cut you off. I don't think he can't. He can cut you off. That's a dangerous place to be in. But the Lord says, it's time to come home. It's time to come home. It's time for you to come home and quit roaming around. Come home to your family, those that love you. Come home to where the Spirit of God dwells. Come home to where you can rejoice and sing the songs of Zion. Come home and hear about the old plan of salvation and be reminded of what the Lord has done for you. Come home to where you can find joy and love and peace. Come home. Come home. I'm reminded of a story I heard of a man who had lived ungodly. It says, man is narrating it as this music going on. It's called The Apple Tree. And he said he was living, going out all night, coming in all hours, drinking and doing all sorts of things. And he got into such an argument with his father that he come to blows with him and he hit him. And his father told him, you're just going to have to go, son. He said, we can't live. Your mother can't stand it this way. You're going to have to go. When he took up his things and he left. And he went and he just took off in a direction and he was gone far away from his mother and father who he didn't want to be under their house. And he met a little girl, say a little girl old enough to be married. And in time, they were married and she was a church going. He finally went to church with her, went to her on a revival, sought the Lord got a hold of him and he sought the Lord and he got saved. Then he thought about his mother and father and all that they had done and how he had treated them, and he wrote them a letter. Wasn't no texting, wasn't no calling, it was sent them a letter. So I got saved and told them all about it. Said I'd like to come home and visit for you with a while, but I'd understand if you wouldn't want me. But I'm going to get on the train and I'm going to come, and if it's all right for me to stop and visit a while, put a rag in the top of that old apple tree. And he was telling this man, this preacher that was beside of him on the train, he was telling him all this. And he said, sir, just around this corner, around this bend is where my parents live. You'll be able to see it over there. I can't bear to look. Could you look over there and see if there's a old white rag in that apple tree? Said, preacher, said, son, got choked up. Said, son, you're going to have to open your eyes and you got to see this for yourself. There ain't one white rag in that tree. There's one on every limb. And there's your mother and father out front with a big old bed sheet and wrote on it, welcome home, son, welcome home. He was worried, would they want him back? He was worried, would they welcome him and love him back? Would they bring him back? Well, they was thrilled to see their son come home. I'm going to tell you what, the Lord wants to see you come home. He's got a tree filled with rags to welcome you home. Oh, the church will welcome you home with love. Will wrap their arms around you, make you feel right at home, want you to come back. We need to be in that shape to welcome them home, because I believe somewhere, I don't know if it's here, I pray that it is, for whoever it's meant for. I pray wherever it is, y'all might as well get ready. The Lord sent it out for somebody to come on back home, to come back home to this old way. I pray that you will. Pray that you'll consider it. Pray your God, come to yourself and turn back to your Father and come back home. This is our effort. I know it's very weak, but I do pray that it will be blessed of our God. Thank you for listening.